Nice shot, Fred.
Engineers study it. NASA has modeled it. But it was designed by the Inuit hunters who never went to school. This 4-inch harpoon head, carved from walrus ivory, changes shape after it pierces a seal, toggling sideways under the skin to anchor the prey in place. It's not just smart, it's perfect. And it was built in the coldest place on Earth by people who lived where failure meant extinction. When temperatures plummet to -84 degrees Fahrenheit, survival becomes a constant battle against the environment itself. The extreme cold transforms everyday tasks into potential death sentences. A hunter's hand, momentarily exposed to grip a metal tool, can instantly bond to the freezing surface, a mistake that could cost fingers or worse. The environment shows no mercy for even the smallest errors. A standard wooden bow cracks from thermal stress, rendering it useless at the precise moment a caribou appears on the horizon. What makes Arctic conditions truly treacherous is their absolute intolerance for error. In temperate climates, a failed hunt might mean going hungry for a day. In the Arctic, it could mean starvation for an entire family. The body burns calories at an accelerated rate to maintain core temperature, making energy conservation paramount. Every movement must serve a purpose. Every tool must function perfectly the first time. Unlike modern Arctic explorers with high-tech gear and emergency extraction plans, the Inuit faced these conditions with profound material constraints. They had no access to hardened metals that maintained flexibility in sub-zero conditions, synthetic fibers, or modern insulation technology, and no supply chains bringing replacements if a vital tool failed. Instead, they worked exclusively with locally available materials, bone from marine mammals, sinew from caribou, stone collected during brief summer months, and hides from seal and caribou, materials that would seem hopelessly inadequate to outsiders. Each material presented unique challenges in the cold. Bone becomes more brittle, requiring precise knowledge of potential stress points. Sinew contracts differently, depending on harvest and preparation methods. Stone tools shatter more readily when subjected to rapid temperature changes. The Inuit developed material science knowledge through generations of trial and error that modern engineers would recognize as sophisticated thermal expansion calculations. Yet, within these punishing conditions, the Arctic environment offers unexpected opportunities. Sea ice forms breathing holes where seals must surface regularly, creating predictable hunting locations. The deep freeze preserves meat naturally, allowing for strategic food storage. Specific types of snow and ice can be leveraged to create weapons and shelter impossible in warmer climates. The genius of Inuit technology lies in recognizing and exploiting these openings. Picture a hunter waiting motionless for hours by a seal's breathing hole, muscles cramping from cold, breath controlled to prevent frosting his face coverings. When the seal finally appears, he has mere seconds to strike with absolute precision. His harpoon must function flawlessly despite being stored in temperatures that would shatter modern carbon steel. This knowledge wasn't developed by a single brilliant inventor, but through a lineage of practical innovation. Young hunters learned how to make instruments by observing elders select materials with specific properties. Which caribou antler section had the right density for a harpoon head? Which portion of the walrus tusk provided the optimal flexibility to strength ratio? Every successful hunt reinforced effective designs, while failures drove continuous refinement. Small modifications to blade shape, binding techniques, and material preparation accumulated over centuries, resulting in tools approaching perfection for their specific purpose. Innovation was driven by the absolute necessity of survival. The resulting technologies were complex designs tuned to Arctic physics. These crafts weren't created to simply withstand the extreme cold. They were engineered to actively utilize it. A harpoon head leverages the predictable freezing rate of blood to secure its hold. Sled runners develop a microscopic water layer at specific temperatures for reduced friction. Snow knives use the cohesive properties of ice crystals to create structures impossible in warmer environments. What truly set these technologies apart was a profound understanding of how materials behave under extreme conditions. Without formal scientific education, the Inuit developed empirical knowledge of thermal properties, material fatigue, and structural mechanics that allowed them to create tools perfectly adapted to conditions that defeat modern equipment. The foundation of this technological system began with blades for processing harvested animals efficiently before they froze solid, cutting implements designed specifically for maximizing output while minimizing energy expenditure, a crucial calculation when every calorie counted. When survival depends on processing an animal before it freezes solid, the tool in your hand can't just be good, it must be perfect. Enter the ulu, a crescent-shaped blade that solves problems you didn't even know existed. Unlike straight knives that demand significant force and precise angles, this ingenious cutting tool uses curved geometry to distribute pressure in ways that maximize cutting power while protecting frozen fingers in the harshest environment on Earth. The ulu's curved design functions much like a modern pizza cutter or mezzaluna knife, but with far more versatility. Its rocking motion creates a mechanical advantage similar to how a lever works, allowing users to apply downward pressure efficiently. This curved blade shape maximizes output while minimizing exertion, critical when every calorie matters in sub-zero temperatures. A skilled user can rock the blade with a wrist motion rather than forcing the entire arm to cut straight down, preserving precious energy. Take Kuliak, an Inuit woman from the Nunavut territory, processing a freshly caught seal on the ice. In temperatures well below freezing, she works methodically with her ulu, the tool fitting naturally in her palm. With practiced precision, she separates blubber, meat, and skin in under 30 minutes, a task that would leave modern butchers struggling for hours with conventional knives. Her movements are economical, each cut deliberate, maximizing the utility of every part of the animal while conserving her own energy in the harsh Arctic environment. The ergonomic handle design addresses another Arctic survival challenge: thermal transfer. By using materials that insulate rather than conduct cold, traditionally bone, ivory, or wood, the ulu prevents dangerous heat loss that occurs when handling metal tools in freezing temperatures. This feature prevents frostbite while maintaining dexterity when working with frozen materials. In Inuktitut, the word ulu literally translates to woman's knife, highlighting its traditional role as a tool wielded primarily by Inuit women. This gendered specialization reflected a division of labor where women became the experts in processing harvested animals, transforming them into food, clothing, and other essential resources. Regional variations in knife design reveal specialized adaptation. Communities that regularly hunted whales developed larger, heavier ulus with broader blades capable of processing thick blubber efficiently. Inland groups created smaller, more nimble versions optimized for plant processing. Each community made its design based on local needs, available materials, and specific cutting tasks. The historical manufacturing process reveals another layer of innovation. Before metal was available, ulu blades were crafted from stone varieties, including slate, shale, or quartzite, materials that could hold a sharp edge even in freezing conditions. Today's ulus typically features steel blades, but the fundamental design principles remain unchanged after centuries. In women's hands, the ulu transforms from a simple knife to a multi-purpose tool. Beyond basic cutting, it becomes an instrument for creating survival necessities. Women use it to prepare animal skins, scraping them clean and stretching them until they become as flexible as modern synthetic fabrics. These processed skins become the raw material for creating parkas, boots, and waterproof pants, clothing that outperforms many modern equivalents in Arctic conditions. The ulu embodies sophisticated knowledge of biomechanics, thermal properties, and material science. Inuit innovation focused on optimization. Nothing is wasted in the design, no unnecessary material, no wasted motion, no lost energy. Cultural transmission and knowledge preservation occur through this tool. Young girls learn ulu techniques by watching their mothers and grandmothers, gradually developing specialized skills needed to process animals efficiently. This apprenticeship system ensures crucial survival knowledge passes reliably from generation to generation, with each new user potentially contributing refinements to techniques or tool design. Even in contemporary Inuit communities, many women continue using the ulu for traditional food preparation, maintaining cultural practices while acknowledging the tool's efficiency. When Western alternatives became available, the ulu wasn't abandoned, strong evidence of its superior design for Arctic conditions. No imported technology could outperform this purpose-built tool in its specialized niche. The ulu reveals something profound about technological innovation in extreme environments. When survival depends on getting every detail right, the equipment evolves towards an ideal form that perfectly balances all relevant factors. What happens when your dinner is 150 pounds of blubber-insulated seal that only appears for a split second before vanishing under solid ice? The standard hunting weapons that worked for the rest of humanity would lead to certain starvation in the Arctic, a problem the Inuit solved with a physics-defying invention that modern engineers still admire. Picture this scene. An Inuit hunter crouches motionless beside a small hole in 3-foot-thick sea ice. He's been waiting for hours, barely breathing, listening for the subtle sound of a seal surfacing to take a breath. There's no margin for error. The seal will appear for only seconds before disappearing again, potentially for hours. A conventional spear would simply bounce off the animal's tough hide, or, worse yet, create a wound that allows the seal to escape under the ice, taking with it the precious calories needed for survival. This is where the toggling harpoon head reveals its brilliance. Unlike regular weapons that rely on penetration alone, this ingenious device transforms after impact. When the harpoon strikes, the head, typically crafted from walrus ivory or caribou antler, pivots sideways under the seal's skin, creating an underwater anchor. This mechanical action ensures that even if the seal dives or struggles, the hunter maintains control of his precious quarry. The toggle action requires precise calculations of force, material strength, and pivot points, all developed through observation rather than formal scientific training. The harpoon must penetrate deep enough to allow the complete pivot without passing entirely through the animal. This balance demands intimate knowledge of seal anatomy, identifying where blubber thickness accommodates the toggle without damaging vital organs that would allow the seal to escape beneath the ice, rendering it irretrievable. Material selection directly addressed Arctic challenges. In temperatures where steel becomes brittle, Inuit hunters utilized natural materials that maintained crucial properties in life-ending cold. Walrus ivory and caribou antlers provided the optimal combination of strength and flexibility even at the lowest temperature extremes, similar to how aerospace engineers today select specialized composites for extreme environments. The sinew line connecting the harpoon head to the shaft represents another engineering achievement. Made from seal or walrus hide, cut in a continuous spiral to maximize tensile strength, this line had to meet precise specifications. Thickness affected the head's pivoting action, while inadequate strength meant losing the seal to a broken line. Hunters created a system that withstood enormous stress while maintaining the flexibility essential for the toggle mechanism, solving problems that modern materials scientists would recognize in high-performance cables and tethers. The technology adaptively evolved to address specific hunting challenges. Inuit hunters carried multiple heads, each calibrated for different prey and conditions. A harpoon designed for ring seals differed from one for larger bearded seals, while ice conditions dictated further modifications. For massive bowhead whales, specialized harpoons with heavier toggling heads attached to precisely coiled bearded seal skin lines prevented tangling during extended pursuits. The complete system functioned reliably, despite storage in conditions that would render modern tools useless. Beyond mechanical efficiency, the toggling harpoon addressed the entire hunt ecosystem. The design minimized energy expenditure, critical when every calorie counts in the Arctic. It worked reliably even when the hunter's hands were numb from cold or encased in thick mittens, and ensured retrieval without unnecessary struggle. The harpoon embodied a respectful approach to hunting. Its design ensured an efficient kill, minimizing animal suffering while maximizing success rates. This approach reflected cultural values honoring the relationship between hunter and prey. Technology aligned with spiritual worldview, where technical precision served ethical principles. Knowledge transfer occurred through generations of apprenticeship. Young hunters observed elders selecting materials, testing flexibility, and carving precise angles. This hands-on learning created a continuous feedback loop where each hunt validated or prompted refinement of the design. This constant iteration, tested against extreme conditions, produced a technology that remained unchanged for millennia. Modern engineers studying the toggling harpoon often express admiration for how it balances competing requirements: strength versus weight, complexity versus reliability, sophistication versus simplicity of manufacture. The design elegantly solves multiple problems simultaneously with minimal materials, a hallmark of truly superior engineering, using only locally available resources without the benefit of modern manufacturing. But what good is the perfect harpoon if you can't get close enough to use it? The Inuit kajak was a complete life support system that defied the deadly physics of Arctic waters, allowing hunters to survive conditions that would kill most humans before they could even paddle 100 yards. Put yourself in an Inuit hunter's position. You've spotted a seal basking on an ice floe half a mile from shore. The air temperature hovers around -40 degrees Fahrenheit, and the water sits just above freezing. Your prey is wary, disappearing at the slightest sound or movement. How do you cross that deadly expanse of water, approach silently, and strike with precision, all while battling conditions that should make your survival impossible? The kajak solved this seemingly insurmountable problem through engineering that was centuries ahead of its time. Unlike modern recreational kayaks, which fail catastrophically in Arctic conditions, the traditional kajak maintained its structural integrity even when ice formed on its surface. The design created a watercraft adapted to its environment that NASA engineers have studied its principles for applications in extreme conditions. What makes this achievement remarkable is the material constraint. The treeless Arctic provided almost no wood, forcing Inuit craftsmen to work with driftwood or salvage materials. A kajak required approximately 60 pieces of driftwood, each carefully selected and shaped using bone and stone tools. Some coastal communities incorporated whale ribs into frames, creating exceptionally strong structures using material that would otherwise go to waste. The skeleton was covered with 5 to 7 seal hides, depending on the kajak's size. Women scraped the hides clean, soaked them until pliable, then stretched and sewed them with precision using bone needles and sinew thread. The seams were waterproofed using rendered seal oil and specialized stitching techniques that created watertight joints even under pressure from choppy seas. This skin covering was waterproof, breathable, and repairable, allowing hunters to make emergency fixes far from shore. A small tear could be temporarily plugged with blubber until properly repaired. The flexible covering absorbed impacts from ice chunks without cracking, something rigid modern materials cannot accomplish without complex design features. The kajak's streamlined hull minimized water resistance while maximizing stability. Regional variations emerged based on hunting conditions. West Greenland kajaks featured narrow, fast designs for open water, while Baffin Island models were shorter and wider for navigating ice flows. Each community optimized its designs through centuries of refinement. One elder from Igloolik recounts how his grandfather survived when caught in a sudden storm. The waves towered over his kajak as he paddled 20 miles to shore, repeatedly rolling underwater and righting himself, while gale-force winds threatened to drive him out to sea. The integrated design of his craft saved his life when ordinary boats would have capsized and sunk. The integration between craft and paddler was ingenious. The hunter wore a waterproof parka made from seal intestines, called a twi'lek, that attached directly to the cockpit rim, creating a completely sealed system. This integration meant that even if the kajak capsized, no water entered the hull. Skilled hunters could perform an Eskimo roll, capsizing completely underwater, then righting themselves using hip movements and paddle leverage without exiting the craft. The paddle itself was another masterpiece of functional design. Crafted from driftwood with bone or ivory edge reinforcements, the double-bladed paddle maximized thrust while minimizing splash, crucial when stalking noise-sensitive prey. The blades were often asymmetrical, with one side slightly larger to compensate for crosswinds, and featured carved contours that reduced water turbulence. Hunters developed techniques to move silently through water. By keeping the paddle low and using shallow strokes, they prevented dripping sounds that alert marine mammals. Some regional designs incorporated bone or ivory inserts at the paddle's edge, preventing the distinctive clack sound when water drops fall. The hunter's position provided thermal efficiency. The snug cockpit minimized exposure to cold air, while legs remained in direct contact with the hull, providing crucial feedback about water conditions. This connection allowed experienced hunters to read the water through their bodies, sensing changes in current and wildlife activity. The thermal properties were so effective that hunters could remain in near-freezing water for hours without dangerous heat loss. The seal oil created a micro-layer of insulation, while the natural materials retained thermal properties even when wet, unlike modern synthetics that conduct heat away when saturated. This sophisticated transportation system remained essentially unchanged for thousands of years because it represented the perfect solution to an extreme challenge. When European whalers and explorers encountered Inuit kajaks in the 18th and 19th centuries, many expressed amazement at their performance, speed, stability, and seaworthiness that rivaled or exceeded their own vessels in Arctic conditions. What if I told you the Inuits' greatest innovation wasn't physical at all, but social? Their hunting system assigned every community member, from 4-year-old children to 80-year-old elders, specific roles that transformed isolated individuals into a survival machine more effective than any modern hunting party. Unlike today's recreational hunters who venture out alone or in small groups, traditional Inuit hunting was an intricate community operation where success depended on perfect coordination. When a successful hunter returned with a seal or walrus, it triggered a precisely choreographed sequence that had been refined over thousands of years. This survival algorithm ensured everyone knew exactly what to do without discussion, with each person moving into position like components of a well-oiled machine. The education system behind this social machine was equally remarkable. Young boys began their apprenticeship almost from the moment they could walk, first through careful observation. Unlike Western education with its emphasis on instruction, Inuit learning happened through silent watchfulness. A boy might spend years simply observing how an elder selected the perfect antler piece for a harpoon head before being allowed to attempt even the simplest carving task. This patient approach ensured that when a tool was finally created, it would function perfectly in life-or-death situations. As boys mastered each skill, they gradually took on more complex tasks, building a comprehensive knowledge base that included how to make weapons, when and why to use different designs. By the time a young man was ready for his first independent hunt, he had absorbed decades of community wisdom through this apprenticeship system. The training extended beyond hunting techniques to weather prediction, animal behavior, and the subtle signs that indicated changing ice conditions. While men specialized in the hunt itself, women developed equally crucial expertise in processing and preserving the catch. Their specialized knowledge ensured nothing went to waste, with every part of the animal utilized for food, tools, clothing, or shelter. The elders served as living libraries of environmental knowledge. An 80-year-old elder might not participate in the physical hunt, but their ability to predict weather patterns based on subtle cloud formations or forecast animal movements by observing tiny environmental changes could mean the difference between feast and famine. This role as knowledge keeper gave elders tremendous value in a culture where memorized information was the only available database. At the heart of this social system was the Ninggi-tuk, the sharing of the hunt. This economic structure followed strict traditional rules. When a seal was caught, specific portions went to designated community members based on their contribution and need. The hunter who made the successful strike received certain prize cuts, but the majority of the catch was divided according to ancient sharing customs. Like a mutual insurance company where everyone holds a policy, this system protected against individual misfortune. If your hunt failed today, you still ate, because tomorrow your success might feed others. In the Avanerswak region of northern Greenland, archaeological evidence reveals communities organized around communal hunting of large whales and walruses. These hunts required extraordinary coordination, with each group headed by a skilled umialik, a hunting crew chief whose authority came from demonstrated expertise. These leaders coordinated complex hunting operations involving dozens of community members, each with precise responsibilities. The effectiveness of this social system becomes clear when comparing success rates. In regions where modern hunters equipped with rifles typically achieve less than a 30% success rate when hunting seals, traditional Inuit communities maintained success rates approaching 90%. This remarkable difference came from their ability to coordinate people into a single, perfectly functioning organism where each individual acted as a specialized cell with a specific purpose. The sharing system also solved the critical challenge of food preservation. When a large walrus or whale was caught, the meat needed processing before freezing solid or spoiling. By distributing tasks across multiple families, communities preserved hundreds of pounds of meat rapidly. This efficient processing meant less waste and more security during lean times. Children as young as 4 had meaningful roles in this system, often serving as lookouts or message carriers. This early integration into community work gave them purpose while teaching them to observe and contribute from their earliest years. By adulthood, participation in the community hunt was as natural as breathing. The social sophistication behind Inuit hunting challenges our modern notion of technological advancement. While European explorers arrived with metal tools and firearms, they often struggled to achieve the same consistent results as Inuit hunters using traditional methods. The difference wasn't in the physical equipment, but in the social organization. The Inuit had developed a human system adapted to Arctic conditions than any individual technology could achieve. That social system European explorers failed to understand didn't just disappear when modern technology arrived. It evolved in a way that defies our assumptions about progress. What happens when a culture with 3,000 years of Arctic survival knowledge encounters GPS and snowmobiles? The answer reveals a profound truth about human adaptation that modern society is only beginning to appreciate. When Winchester rifles first appeared in Nunavut in the 1860s, anthropologists predicted traditional hunting would vanish within a generation. This prediction fundamentally misunderstood Inuit decision-making. Rather than abandoning their traditions, Inuit hunters evaluated each new technology through the lens of Arctic survival wisdom. Anthropologists now call this pattern selective integration, a sophisticated approach where technologies are assessed based on reliability, repairability, and performance under extreme conditions. Like a balanced ecosystem where different species serve complementary roles, traditional and modern kits each occupy specific niches in Arctic survival. Consider transportation systems. Snowmobiles, introduced widely in the 1960s, offer speed advantages over dog sleds, but come with hidden Arctic costs. They require fuel, parts that can't be repaired locally, and can strand hunters miles from safety when they fail. Olayuk Akesuk, an elder from Cape Dorset, explains why communities maintain both systems. The Ski-Doo gets you there fast, but the dogs get you home no matter what. When the temperature drops below -60 and the engine won't start, you'll understand why we keep both. Hunting tools follow similar integration patterns. While rifles are effective for certain scenarios, they have significant drawbacks. Gunshots echo for miles, alerting other animals. They can destabilize weak ice or trigger avalanches. And they require ammunition, a resource unavailable during months-long periods when ice prevents supply deliveries. Nathan Kamanik of Igloolik describes their community's approach to walrus hunting. We use rifles for the initial shot, but always carry harpoons for the finishing strike. The rifle might wound, but the toggling harpoon guarantees we won't lose the animal underwater. No hunter wants to explain to his family why the meat sank to the bottom. Navigation technology demonstrates this hybrid approach as well. GPS devices have become standard for younger hunters, but are used alongside traditional wayfinding techniques. In regions where batteries fail and satellite connections drop, reading snow patterns, wind direction, and celestial navigation remains essential. Children still learn to identify nearly imperceptible landmarks and memorize travel routes through seemingly featureless terrain. Climate change has accelerated this hybrid approach. As sea ice conditions become increasingly unpredictable, hunters combine satellite imagery showing current ice conditions with traditional knowledge of how different ice types behave under pressure. David Serkoak, an elder from Naujat, notes, "Our ancestors could predict weather patterns with 90% accuracy just by observing cloud formations and animal behavior. Now those patterns are changing, so we use weather forecasts from satellites, but still pay attention to what the animals tell us. When both systems agree, we know it's safe to travel." What's emerging is a resilient strategy, maximizing the strengths of both knowledge systems. Young hunters carry satellite phones and emergency beacons while knowing how to build emergency snow shelters. They wear modern cold weather gear, but keep traditional caribou skin clothing as backup. Community hunts coordinate through radio communication while maintaining the traditional division of responsibilities that maximized efficiency for centuries. The physical integration of gear is equally fascinating. Across Nunavut and Greenland, snowmobiles feature specially designed racks for traditional tools. Rifle metal components are wrapped with caribou skin to prevent dangerous skin adhesion at extreme temperatures. The traditional Komotic sled has been redesigned for snowmobiles while maintaining the flexible lashing system, allowing repairs with available materials. Educational programs now deliberately teach this integrated approach. At Nunavut Arctic College, young hunters learn snowmobile maintenance alongside traditional harpoon construction. Community workshops pair elders demonstrating emergency shelter building with younger instructors explaining satellite phone operation, ensuring both knowledge systems remain viable. The Inuit approach offers valuable insights for modern design thinking. Rather than viewing technologies as competing systems where newer is better, the Arctic model evaluates the crafts based on their reliability under worst-case conditions. This framework prioritizes redundancy for critical functions and local resource availability over efficiency in ideal conditions, a lesson increasingly relevant in our own uncertain future. What we've seen throughout this journey isn't just clever tool design, it's a philosophy of survival that modern engineers are only beginning to appreciate. The Inuit harpoon, with its toggling head that transforms under a seal's skin, represents problem-solving at its finest, using minimal materials to achieve maximum results without waste. This approach offers crucial lessons for our uncertain future. Rather than fighting against environmental constraints, the Inuit worked with them, creating sustainable solutions through intimate knowledge of their surroundings. Their tools aren't just objects, but embodiments of a worldview where innovation comes from observation, patience, and respect for natural systems. The ultimate survival tool isn't technology, it's knowledge. And if you've made it this far, if you've listened, wondered, and maybe even felt something stir inside, consider subscribing to join our small Inuit family. Until next time, stay curious and stay warm.